Is Gojo about to die? Recently, in Jujutsu Kaisen, Gojo Satoru is having a little bit of trouble on account of the massive fucking gash going through his neck and the current blender he is sitting in. So yes, this is looking like quite the spicy predicament for Gojo. And unfortunately for him, nobody let him know about the barrierless domain, because while Yuji may have some of the most tremendous potential of any sorcerer, it is not academic potential. And he is dumb as rocks. And the only thing Inumaki is capable of doing is screaming salmon desperately. So let's talk about Gojo and Sukuna's actual domain clash for a second. As far as the clash of the individual territories is concerned, they are equals. The sure hit effects, they cancel each other out, and they had to wait until one of them was injured or a domain collapsed. But which domain is better overall? Undeniably Sukuna's. As far as we know, Malevolent Shrine just no diff clears any domain with a barrier. And in Gojo's case, it doesn't even matter if his territory matches Sukuna's. So Gojo is now stuck in the sure hit of Malevolent Shrine, which Malevolent Shrine, unless Sukuna specifies otherwise, just continuously slashes until everything is eradicated. So as far as we know with Gojo and what he has displayed capable of doing, he has no answer to this currently. The real problem here is that, again, Gojo is just too arrogant. He tried a domain clash when he should have just teleported. Because if Gojo was in fact aware there was a barrierless domain, his best bet, if he didn't know what was going to happen, was to just not clash at all. So I would hope that within a month they would have told him about it. But either way, he is currently stuck in the max setting blender. And there is a lot of cope going on around this, and that, oh, Gojo can teleport now, or he'll do something else. The truth is, he just doesn't have anything we know of. Sukuna is able to mince people into little tomato bits extremely quickly, faster than any known feat with RCT. And that was the feat of a 15-finger Sukuna outside of his own domain. But inside of Sukuna's domain, Dismantle and Cleave, they just eradicate entire cities. It looked like this whole place got dusted. This was one giant Jujutsu pancake. You wouldn't even be able to find a body to bury. Gojo would be dust. There would be nothing left. What's he gonna do? Clap his hands together? He won't have hands. This is not just one slash that Gojo is dealing with, it is the first of many. And if you're just looking at this from the feats we have, and on paper, Gojo is fucked. And finally, this puts to rest all of the domain arguments and all of the infinity arguments. Infinity was never going to be a big factor in the Gojo versus Sukuna fight. And despite what some people may have hoped, Gojo was never going to one-shot no-diff Sukuna. But the bigger problem now is for Gojo to get out of this, which he probably will, because this fight is not going to last for 2 chapters. He is going to have to ass pull and break the RCT speed record or bring out something completely new. Or Megumi will provide Gojo some divine intervention. Or if Gege truly hates Gojo, they'll have Sukuna let him live so he can fight him longer. That would be the greatest insult to Gojo's ego I can think of. I mean, Gojo did not plan for this domain to go down. And it is entirely in line for Sukuna to do something like this. He is always toying with people in his fights. And like Gojo, Sukuna is a gloater when he has the upper hand. And I'll be honest, whatever Gojo does to get out of this, it's probably going to be stupid, and I just wish they put him in a situation that wasn't so ridiculous to get out of. Because being stuck with your barrier pants down in the domain blender, he should be dead unless Sukuna decides to not slash him repeatedly for some reason, or he's too strong for some other reason. We did see Ryu tank a cleave or a dismantle from Sukuna before. Granted, it wasn't a serious Sukuna, but Ryu is also significantly weaker than Gojo is. But Ryu also, you know, died. Got the unfortunate diagnosis of death. And I have seen some people bring up Mahoraga, that Mahoraga survived Malevolent Shrine. Well, Mahoraga was already adapting to Dismantle. And Mahoraga is also just a giant fuck-off monster that eats Dismantles for breakfast and just absorbs them into its body like nutrition. But the bigger thing for me is that they said Gojo had some prior training before this fight. That's really all the setup we have for him having some brand new ability. And if it just gets him out of like the instant death situation, that's a little lame. The situation is just so dire that I don't see how he's getting out of this without like a binding vow or a brand new power. I am worried we are about to get flashbacks to Kenjaku surviving the black hole, where Gojo says, wow, that almost killed me, if not for my domain binding vow hacks. This was pretty clearly for shock value and as a cliffhanger for weekly readers, but Gojo still probably dies in this fight. And the way the other characters react to Sukuna's cursed energy efficiency and his open barrier domain, it just seems like Sukuna is on a different level. I think Gojo likely has the better technique and his overall power set is going to be better, though that could change when we actually find out what the Sukuna technique reveal is. That being said, I think that Sukuna is just a more talented sorcerer than Gojo is. It seems like Gojo is more gifted, but Sukuna is more skilled with the tools he has. I got a tremendous amount of shit for saying that Gojo was having his infinity broken by domain amplification, but Sukuna, well, he busted infinity in the first chapter of their fight. I remember a time that if you ever said anything was going to bypass infinity, you would be driven out of the Jujutsu town with pitchforks. And I have no idea why everybody is deciding to watch this on the television screen. Shouldn't you all be doing something more proactive, like, I don't know, stopping Kenjaku? If this was a tournament arc and it was the final battle between Gojo and Sukuna, I'd understand, but they are at the end of the world and one guy is currently making it happen. But as far as Gojo surviving Malevolent Shrine is concerned, well, the entire internet is in a state of headcanon because Gojo has no feats that let him get out of this currently. We'll have to wait and see, but Gojo is probably going to do something dumb. And outside of pure headcanon like a binding vow, how do I think Gojo might survive? My first thought would be Megumi, because Megumi's soul is still in there. We see him in chapter 219, he's crying in the abyss. We have not seen him since, and if he's going to come back for anything, it would be Gojo or Yuji dying. If Megumi was a supporting character, I'd say, oh, he's gone forever, but he's a deuteragonist, and he's going to come back in some shape or form eventually, and Megumi's one and only sensei Gojo turning into actual tomato paste sounds like a pretty good reason to me. And is Gojo currently experiencing curse technique burnout? Who knows, because Sukuna definitely doesn't seem to experience curse technique burnout, but maybe Gojo does. Maybe they both do, and this fire arrow is just severely nerfed. Or maybe it's because it's stored separately, and Sukuna's technique does not burn out unless it's something like dismantle or cleave. And I just do not see the Gojo versus Sukuna fight ending without Sukuna's technique being revealed. I do think that Yuji will be the one who is heavily involved in defeating Sukuna, but Gojo is going to have a serious fight with him, and this just isn't it. Because after this chapter, beyond the fire arrow, Sukuna has used everything we've already seen in his arsenal. So after this, we should be in new territory for both of these characters, especially Sukuna, because he just has way more to be revealed. And honestly, it's about time, because we are 226 chapters now without a Sukuna technique reveal, and that is insane. Everybody talks about Mahoraga and Dharma Chakra, myself included, but the fact that this thing is hidden is far more terrifying. And we are living in the timeline where within the Gojo versus Sukuna fight, we get to see domain expansion clashes before rapid escape. I'm really not that concerned for Gojo surviving the Malevolent Shrine slashes as much as I am concerned for the way he survives the Malevolent Shrine slashes, because it's gotta be satisfying and it has to make sense, and if it is something super ass-pully and just comes out of nowhere, it's gonna be a little stupid. And I feel like if you reread this in the future, it would impact the quality of the fight overall, because you'd be like, wait a second, how the hell did Gojo do that? And the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, it kind of has to be the most bombastic fight in Jujutsu Kaisen, because we're not really going to get something like this again. I mean, I know Yuji will get his fight with Sukuna, but I do not expect the Yuji-Sukuna fight to be on this kind of scale. Or potentially even Yuji alone, because he could be tag teaming with somebody. And while Gege may dislike Gojo, they are not a terrible writer. They aren't just going to turn him into a useless character. Because if Gojo dies here, he has almost no point in the story beyond being the honor jobber. And retroactively, a bunch of other characters like Angel also become useless because their whole purpose was to get Gojo out of the box. So those are my final thoughts. I don't think Gojo is going to die, and there's no break next week, so we'll find out pretty soon. But now I want to hear your opinion. How do you think Gojo is going to survive, or do you think he's just going to bite the dust? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like content like this, subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.